Hello, this is Taha.
This is Anaina,
This is Movie Masala.
and we're here to yap at you about films we watched recently.
And today we're doing The Brutalist.
I'm here for you. I could do my ridiculous job anywhere. Do you think I went to university to write about lipsticks? Shame on you.
We came here because it was our only option.
Very talked about, always sold out in cinemas, which is why I haven't seen it yet, but I'm interested to know what your thoughts are.
So I said that this was one of my most anticipated films of the year. And I was like, yeah, because it's a 3.5-hour historical epic. And that sells me in on of itself, right? So this film follows a Hungarian architect who comes over to the US after World War II, fleeing persecution, and is struggling to make something of himself. And in trying to find success and follow his passion for architecture designing, he kind of discovers this twisted version of the American dream. And he's played by Adrien Brody, who delivers such an incredible performance. I'll get you the performance in a second, but also like your twisted version of the American dream is fully manifest in Guy Pearce's character, Harrison Lee Van Buren Sr. Incredible. Perfect encapsulation of that time. Then you also have Felicity Jones, who plays his wife, Elizabeth. It's not Elizabeth, and they kind of also talk about the Americanization of that name in the film. Then you have Joe Elvin, who's also really good as Harry Lee. And again, the cast in this film fires on all cylinders, right? This movie is divided into kind of 3 parts. Part 1, Part 2, and epilogue, right? So it's more 2 parts in an epilogue. And what I first want to start off with is the first part of this film, I think, is utter brilliant. The intermission hit, and I was fully blown away. I was having so much fun. Someone in the back stood up and was like, well, I've heard first half drags a bit. And I was like, I did not even clock it. Did it feel like an hour, 40 minutes? No, it did not at all for me. Again, it does help that I went in fully expecting a long movie, and it was very fun for me. Like, it's hard to describe this in a podcast, but I was like fully watching this and I was just like, that's so good. That was such a good scene. That was such a good performance. So, and when you keep doing this by yourself silently, the film goes by quicker. Yeah, so it's really good in that way, right? The first half is really good. And I think one of the strongest parts of it is Adrien Brody's acting. Because in the first 15 minutes, I was like, oh yeah, he totally deserves that nomination. And by the end of the film, I was like, and he probably should win.
Fair.
One key scene that I want to highlight, it's not a major spoiler or anything, but it's such a good scene where you have Adrien Brody and Guy Pearce's character just talking to each other. And Harrison gives Laszlo these pictures of his own architecture, of Laszlo's architecture that he did in Hungary, because he was a prominent architecture in Budapest, that he was someone, right? And you see Laszlo taken aback, and he says and he talks about how he never even imagined these pictures still surviving, yet alone having relevance. And I wanted to cry. Adrien Brody in such a meaningful way in how he just encapsulating this idea of I cannot believe that this survived, and just how overwhelmed he is to just see his own creation surviving is so emotionally well played. I wanted to cry in just that small scene.
Fair.
And again, it's also Guy Pearce, who's so in such small ways showing this generosity of the American dream of how it can uplift anyone, but how it slowly corrupts and twists, and in the end is never really for you. It will take you along with it if your trajectory matches its. But as soon as its trajectory differs from yours, you will be shunted out. And that's where the second half of this film comes in. Right?
Okay.
So the second half of this film starts off when Felicity Jones, this character, Elizabeth, joins Laszlo back in America because she is still stuck there and cannot come with her niece, Sophia, who's played by Rafi Cassidy. And she's stuck there and cannot come. And then when she comes, the second part starts. And I feel by the end of the second part is where this film kind of lost me. And that's not because either of Felicity Jones, who I also think delivers a great performance. It is because I feel the second part just does not have the restraint and the nuance that the first part does of this film. And what I mean by that is there's such small little scenes like I described to you in the diner, right? You can see this and pick up on like the small nuances, intricacies of how it's building and corrupting, and like you can see within Guy Pearce. And I think the second part just gives it to you too easily in the sense of like it doesn't hold back, and it's just too on the nose of the corruption and the degradation and the hurt that this is causing Laszlo. And even in the second part, the parts I liked most were when it pulled back again, when it like restrained itself again. And I think because it doesn't do that in the second half, it just doesn't hold up, as it feels like the second half is just not written as well in my sense.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
as we've seen with a lot of films of late, the first half does brilliantly, and then the second half, you're like, God damn it. God damn it. I think we spoke about the same thing with The Substance, perhaps.
Yeah, I feel The Substance is also a great example of this. And well, The Substance, again, I get more like it has a through line and it is always picking up. I just didn't like where it ended up. I feel this one doesn't stick its landing. It leaves you feeling empty. Like, it was this message of the twisted kind of American dream, and again, everything that it was doing was so well done. But by the end, it felt like it never like gave me a conclusion to its message. It was writing this brilliant essay and throwing in such good cultural deep examples. Also, I will get to like the culture and class and history steeped in this film. But it was giving me such good examples, building it up so well. And by the end, it felt it just abandoned that essay and just gave me a different conclusion altogether. I wanted more, not basically where Adrien Brody would end up in his life at the end, or if he became successful or not. I feel the main purpose of this film was where is story in America necessarily, and how is story in America necessarily, and especially how Guy Pearce like concludes. I didn't think it just never did that properly, and then you're just kind of left a bit underwhelmed. It does some of it, but you're just left like, as you went on, I feel you just didn't keep up the steam. Your pace became faster, but you lost the restraint and the incredible like layering and nuance and intricacy you were adding on in the start.
Yeah, I mean, that is fair, and I think that's about the writing. It's on the writing, totally.
Yeah. More on like certain other elements. I think Brady Corbet though directs this for me stunningly. You meant to talk to me like I've heard that this film is kind of over-indulgent. And in certain parts, 1000% it is. I cannot lie. There's a lot of extra scenes which you could argue could be cut. Sure, they could. But do they add so much cultural milieu, context, and like this richness to its world? Yes. It's like you can go to a McDonald's and get a Big Mac for £2. Or you can go to a very expensive restaurant that will tell you where the cow was grown and the farmer who made the bread. And yes, that restaurant is being overindulgent and a bit like
extravagant,
pretentious even. Right? But once you take a bite of that burger, you can't argue with results. And that is what, especially within the first half. Again, the second half is also really good. I want to say I have critiques, but I still don't think it's bad in any way. It just doesn't hold up. But it's like taking a bite of that burger and you're like, I don't care. At the end of the day, this is just good. And that's what it does. I think because it adds so much cultural history and it never really stops to explain things to you. You can see this if you know the class, if you know the culture, if you know the history, you pick up on things in the background because it is well researched. And it's so well researched that there's one very 2-second scene where someone's playing cards and you can see that it's an older version of playing cards. And I'm like, that's such a good scene. And even the shit of like, oh, these people are so rich, they have white people working for them as their servants. No. So it's like, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing so well.
I mean, Jacques Audiard could never.
Could truly. Emilia Perez catching strays. So fun. It's so well done. And even in the first hour, right? you fully understand who Adrien Brody's character was before coming to America. Even though you don't see that, the film never even gives you that much in detail about it. But from the performances, and again, from the script and the writing and the small things that it adds, you know, oh, he was this smart person. He was this very gifted. He is this very gifted architect. And yeah, he's just shoveling coal right now. And you see that like level of sadness as well of like, I cannot believe this is what I'm relegated to. But also you see that he's never been a high class person. He's never been an upper class person. He's very root rat in those ways. Like you can see, yeah, he probably was middle class based on the way he talks. He communicates with his family, the way he does drugs. Basically, it's all integrated there with it in such good, nuanced ways. And I feel this intricate collective portrayal is so well done. And yeah, again, credit to Brady Corbet and Mona Fastvold, who again, you can see the history and everything steeped into it. It has a section about also like the formation of Israel and everything. And because that was a very recent thing that happened after World War II, and their connection, the Jewish connection, how they approach that. It's steeped in Pennsylvanian history because that's where it's set. Everything is chock full. It's so detailed, so rich that you still can't come away and be like, I didn't have a very enjoyable, very incredible experience with them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to catch it before the Oscars, but I also, even if I don't, I'm waiting to see how many it lands.
Yeah, a few more people that I want to highlight is Lol Crawley, who's the cinematographer for this film. This film has some incredibly beautiful shots, especially of architecture and everything. And I think, again, it is just good cinematography. It is just one of those things where you're like, this is an experienced person who knows what they're doing and is just doing small little things that make it so well done, right? And also the score, which is by, if I'm correct, Daniel Bloomberg, which is also really good. It punches up and makes it feel so dynamic and uplifting when it needs to, and also crushes you so heavily when it needs to as well. It's again, this film really is such a good distillation of the American dream and its corruption in so many good, great ways that I really, really enjoyed. Last few notes I want to end on was like, there's some critiques about architecture people had with this film, and maybe they were relevant. I don't know. This film does make me feel like, oh, that's such cool building designs, and I don't know much about architecture, so maybe I'm an idiot here. But I feel if you're a novice person who doesn't know about architecture, you're gonna go and be like, that's so cool, that library looks awesome. Stuff like that. There's also some like controversy around AI with this film, but I feel that was also kind of overblown, to be very honest, from everything I've learned, which is like, they basically just use pitch correctors to make sure their Hungarian accent sounded as well as they could. And Adrien Brody is of Hungarian descent as well. And even I was having trouble pronouncing accurate Hungarian. So they basically did what Bollywood films have done for ages and took actors' voice to make them sound better.
It's the difference between auto-tune and AI. I will never say using AI in art is okay. I mean, stick to auto-tune or something, but yeah.
Yeah, even if I correct, the editor or the sound designer, I forgot who did the interview, also mentioned that we could have totally done this by ourselves without using any AI, but it would have just taken much longer and cost much more. And honestly, for a film that has less than a budget of 10 million, if you watch this film, you can see every penny being spent. It feels grand. It's exploring so much and everything. It's very well made for the budget it has. So honestly, I can't even fault it for that. If like, we just wanted to use this to get it over with quicker, we could have easily done this by hand. I'm like, sure, that's fair. We didn't have the budget.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. Also, it has an intermission. So if you're scared that this 3.5-hour film, you will need to go to the toilet or something, it has a very welcome intermission. So yeah, that were my thoughts. I really wanted to talk about this. It might not have lived up to all of the hype I had for it, but I still think it's a very, very well made film. It uses its runtime brilliantly, and Adrien Brody is just so good in this. Even Guy Pearce is really good, but Adrien Brody just is absolutely incredible.
Fair. Great.
This podcast is produced solely by us. Musical assets from Pixabay. Thank you for tuning in. See you again next time.
Bye-bye.